Hey, what's going on YouTube? Alabama Reloader here. So coming to you today, and I wanted to just walk through the very basic and simple brass prep process that I follow when I reload my rifle ammunition. So this just so happens to be 280 Ackley improved. If you've been following along, you'll know that I just recently rebarreled or had a company in Huntsville, Alabama called Heavy Precision. Had those guys rebarrel my Tika T3X from 270 Winchester over to 280 Ackley improved. It's an ace barrel. And so far, in the very limited testing that I've done, you guys have seen the results. It's really shooting lights out. I'm extremely thrilled with how this rifle has performed so far. But now that I have all of this brass, this is Hornady factory. This was Hornady factory ammunition. So it's all Hornady brass, 60 pieces. I bought 3 boxes of their Hornady Precision Hunter, the 162 grain ELDX Precision Hunter ammo. So I've got 60 pieces of Hornady brass. It is now in a twice fired state, right? So fired all, once as factory ammunition, came back, a bunch of random hand loads thrown at it using Midwest Powder's MP620. You guys have seen those results. A lot of really promising results with that round of testing. Now everything is in a twice fired condition, and I want to walk you through basically how I got to this point and then what I do moving forward. So now this brass has actually been decapped, okay? So deprimed and wet tumbled, right? So I just want to show you that real quick. Just not really show you, but I just want to basically talk about the Lee Universal Decapping Die. That's the one I use to decap all my brass. I actually have a couple of Redding Universal decapping dies as well. They offer a small caliber and large caliber decapping die. I believe Lee does as well. I can't remember exactly whether or not they do. But Redding has 2 different universal decapping die options. And I've got both of them. Those are sitting in the house, mostly because you see out here in the building where I do all of my reloading, it's not climate controlled. So surface rust, it basically is, it's a thing, right? It just gets all over the die sets. So my Redding dies, I actually leave those in the house. With this stuff, all I did, once everything was twice fired, came in, decapped it with the Lee Universal Decapping Die. So got rid of the primer. From there, took all 60 pieces, threw them in that guy. This is the Frankfurt Arsenal rotary tumbler. This is the small version, or the light version, LITE, and it works great. I've had no issues with it. Really enjoyed, or at least a big fan of, wet tumbling. I've never tried to dry tumble, so those of you that love to dry tumble, that's cool too. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying I've never dry tumbled anything. I've only wet tumbled, and it's only been fairly recently, I'd say within the past maybe couple of years, maybe past couple of years, give or take, somewhere in that range, that I've actually started to clean my brass. Before that, never cleaned my brass. That was not something that I did. I only do it now simply because I like working with clean brass whenever I go to work on my hand loads. And a lot of times, a lot of the projects that you guys see on this channel, working up a hunting load for a friend or a family member. And so if I'm going to give them, a finished product, I want it to look as good as possible. So that's really kind of part of the reason why I actually started cleaning my brass to begin with. So, but I can highly recommend that with some stainless steel pins. And I use the Frankfurt Arsenal little like detergent packets. I just throw one of those in there with hot water and stainless steel pins, and it gets this stuff really clean. So no complaints. It comes out looking mostly new, right? Pretty shiny. And I only tumbled it for like an hour. So that is the state at which we're at now. I took all of that out, got rid of all the stainless steel pins, and put these on a baking sheet, basically a baking tray. Put them in the oven, and I let them cook for, it was probably about 5 hours at 170 degrees. So normally I will bump up the temperature a little bit, more like 215, and let them bake for a little bit less than that. Just try to dry them out, get rid of all the moisture. But we were actually not at the house. I had these just sitting on 170 for 5 hours or so because we were going to be gone for a little bit. So they're all good and clean and dry. And so from this point, this is where we need to begin the actual process of resizing the brass. And then from there, I'll do a chamfer, deburr. These have already been chamfered and deburred on the case mouth from the previous firing, right? The other, after they were once fired, I did the initial brass prep on them after that firing. So they already have a chamfer and deburr around the case mouth. So it's not something that I'm gonna kind of be super aggressive with. So it's just more of a touch-up process on that. Primer pockets are pretty clean, so I'm not gonna worry about trying to clean those either. And then it'll be ready for primer, powder, and bullet. So let me walk you through how I set up my resizing die. Pretty simple and straightforward. This is something that, you know, obviously your mileage may vary. You just need to figure out kind of for your setup what your desired resize looks like. It's a little bit of trial and error, okay? You really do have to sort of just get your sizing die going into the press. I have a Lee full-length resizing die. Now, I know someone did drop a comment on one of my earlier videos about how they had the Lee set and it did not bump the shoulder, or so. There was something about that. Someone made a comment about that it didn't work for them, and they ended up having to go with a different die, you know, die brand or something in this particular cartridge, that the Lee 280 Ackley die was not cut properly or something. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and double check. But someone said that. For me, I haven't had any issues. This pushes the shoulder back, the setting that I have it on here. And of course it was trial and error, right? I started where I had my die basically. So what you want to do, the instructions, you raise the ram to the top of the stroke. All right, you get rid of all the slop, right? You tighten it down till you get rid of all the slop in the shell holder. Then you raise the ram, then you go like an additional quarter turn, okay? All right, you go like an additional quarter turn, and that is the setting that Lee recommends. Now, again, depends on how this die is cut and the level of full-length resize that you're looking for. If you're only wanting to bump your shoulder 1 or 2 thousandths, then what you're gonna wanna do is not make that quarter turn. Once you kind of take all the slop out of the press, you're probably gonna wanna start there, right? Screw the die all the way in, take the slop out of the shell holder, tighten your lock ring, and go ahead and resize a piece of brass at that setting, okay? Now, what's gonna help determine all this and actually tell you where you're at is something like this. This is a Hornady, headspace comparator. You definitely need a headspace comparator set. Now, other companies have come out with these, you know, more high quality, precise, whatever, this, that, and the other. I promise you this will get you close enough. For your average person, which is what I am, this is gonna get you plenty close and give you an accurate enough measurement where you're gonna get a good understanding of how much you're actually resizing your brass. So that is the process that I follow whenever I'm setting up my full-length resizing die for the first time. Is I basically just take all the slop out of the shell holder. You guys saw it. I sit there and showed it on video. You tighten it down until you take all the slop out. Then from there, that's the first, I'll resize the first piece doing that. Generally, I'm looking for anywhere from like 1.5, 2 thou, you know, all the way up to, I'm fine pushing the shoulder back 4 thou, right? It doesn't bother me to size the brass in that way, okay? Now, if you're setting up your sizing die and all of a sudden you're pushing your shoulder back 10, 15 thou, then there's an issue. You need to go back and make an adjustment on your die. You definitely don't want to be pushing the shoulder back that far. So that's where this guy comes in handy. You just put it on your caliper jaws, and then you zero on the piece of brass, on that initial piece of brass, and you're looking for a negative measurement, right? It should be like negative, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 thou. That's what you're looking for. So then once that resize is completed, after that, that's of course when I come over to my Case Prep Express. Then I will run chamfer deburr, right? And it's just a very light chamfer deburr, neck up in the brush up in the neck. And then this piece is ready to go. Now, obviously I haven't resized it yet, so I still have to go through that process. But I just wanted to kind of walk you guys through my process. But that's literally it. There's no special mandrels, no special sizing dies. There's no special coated whiz bang, high speed, low drag, $400 sizing die. It's just, that's not a process that I follow. That I do have, I think the most expensive sizing dies I own are, I guess, the dies that came in the Redding. I have like a precision, what is it, a Redding precision kit or something, in 300 Win short mag. And that's an expensive die set just because it comes with a micrometer seating die, bullet seating die. But in general, I don't have any fancy, expensive, full-length sizing dies or sizing dies in general. I do use an L.E. Wilson mandrel die in all of my 6.5 Creedmoor stuff, but that's just because I've learned over time in my testing that it basically sets a really good measurement for neck tension, and I've had really, really good results with that. But I'm not gonna go out and buy any other mandrels for any other calibers. So that kind of should tell you how much stock I put in that, right? I'm not willing to go out and buy additional mandrels or anything like that. So I only do it because I already have it on hand, because that mandrel setup came with someone else's reloading setup that I bought off of them. So I didn't actually go out and purchase that. I just stick with standard full-length sizing dies like Lee. And they work. Lee, Hornady, Redding, so CH tool and die, that type of stuff. But that's the process. Extremely simple and straightforward. Really, it's figuring this adjustment out, right? Or it's figuring out this position in your press for the full length sizing die. That's really where you have to focus your attention on setting this up properly. You set it up properly one time and you're good to go. But you really want to take your time, make sure, like I said, you raise that ram all the way to the top of the stroke, the press to the top of the stroke, get all the slop out of that shell holder, tighten your lock ring down, and then go ahead and run your first piece there and establish a sort of a baseline of this is what that die setting gives me. And then from there, you want to make sure you're using other pieces. Don't just continuously resize one piece of brass. You want to make sure you use a new piece each and every time. And obviously you want to make sure that your measurements are all the same, right? Same point of reference. These are all fired in the same rifle chamber. So headspace should in theory be almost identical or identical. There can be variation, but in general, measurements should be extremely close, so I should be able to take these pieces of brass and then make minor adjustments, loosening up the lock ring, tightening this down, maybe just a slight, maybe a 1/16 of a turn, 1/8 of a turn, something like that. And then from there, just keep making measurements until I get -2 thou, right? And then I'm fine with that. I have the die adjusted. Then I can go ahead and resize the rest of the brass. And for a case lube, I would highly recommend using Imperial sizing die wax. This stuff is really, really good sizing die wax or lubrication when you go through this process. So once I do that and the case comes out, I have everything sized the way I want them. That's when I just wipe everything off with this rag. We're good to go. So that's it. That's where we're going to leave it. I'm not actually going to physically walk through the process. I've done it so many times on the channel. I don't really feel the need to do it here in this video. I just wanted to kind of voice over the process itself and, just sort of let you know, right, that it doesn't have to be complicated, and you don't have to complicate things when it comes to reloading. Keeping stuff as simple as possible with as few, moving parts as possible, as few die setups as possible. The focus should be consolidate as much as possible in terms of your process so you can control the process as tightly as you can to make things as repeatable as you can, right? That's really the whole goal when it comes to reloading. That way you can start to reduce variation, eliminate variation in your hand loads, improve your consistency and your performance on target, right, or on game, whatever the case may be. So that's it. That's where we're going to leave it. Once I get all this stuff resized, I plan on loading this stuff, doing a lot of testing, mostly with this Nosler 140. This bullet with MP620 shot the best in the initial round of testing, so I plan on circling back to that bullet. But I do have some Reloader 19. I've got some Reloader 22. I've got some IMR 4350. A lot of those powders that are showing up in load data across multiple bullet brands and load data platforms, I've got those powders. And so my plan is to kind of do a wide test with this particular bullet and multiple powders and just kind of see what type of results we're going to get. Probably going to be doing 3-shot groups. You can see how I have it set up here. Probably going to be doing 3-shot groups for that testing. That's going to tell me what I need to know fairly quickly, right? If we're not shooting, sub MOA with 3 shots, then there's really no point in trying to pursue anything further with that particular combination, right? So that's it. That's where we're going to leave it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I tried to keep this video short and sweet, but, I got to rambling. So that's it. That's where we're going to leave it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll catch you next time. Y'all have a good one.